Kyle, go ahead and text me back, Kyle. We're good and we can start. There we are, Elizabeth Carpenter, Miss Carpenter in the house. Name is corrected. Okay, we're recording, all good. All right, you guys, let's get ready. Let's do this. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing out there?
Good.
Very good. I'm glad everybody's been able to join us. The Virtual Resiliency and Sustainability Task Force Board meeting for Wednesday, August 5th, 2020 is called to order at 3:33 p.m. Right now, we are going to have a moment of silent meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So we can please get the flag put up there, Kyle, for me. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm going to do roll call right now, you guys. When I call your name, just say here or present. Elizabeth Carpenter.
Here.
Maribel Fruitstone.
Present.
Courtney Kirk.
Here.
Kristen McLean.
Present.
Lynn Purcell. I don't believe Lynn Purcell is here for the record. For the record, we also have Vice Mayor Omar C. Nickerson as a liaison to the task force. We also have Chief Magnuson. I believe that is
here.
Everybody who is. Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate that. All right, you guys. Right now, we are going to move on to the approval of the agenda. Right now, this is the moment right here, you guys, where if there's anything you want to add to the agenda, anything you want to take away from the agenda, this is the moment to say so. If I'm hearing no additions or deletions, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as is?
Motion to approve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirk. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carpenter. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing no nays, we're moving right on. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at the minutes that Courtney provided us from last time. If you did, if anybody wants to have a motion to approve the minutes, motion to approve the minutes.
Or if there were any edits. If anybody has any changes to it.
Well, the one I sent out after you did your final edits and you sent it to me and your niece, that's the one I sent out to everybody. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see that yet or not.
I had a chance to look at it. I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second. It's Kristen.
Thank you very much. The minutes motion to approve by Ms. Carpenter, second by Ms. McLean. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing no nays. We're moving right along, you guys. Right now, this is good and welfare. This is for anybody in the audience watching right now. If you guys want to come on and talk about anything on the agenda. I'm seeing nobody in the audience. So I'm assuming that there's nobody to come on and talk about anything on the agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and move right on. You guys, we have no good and welfare. We're going to move right down to the agenda items. So the first agenda item, you guys, we have is the update on the board's responsibilities and restrictions regarding public records, communication, and collaboration, et cetera. Before I turn it over to Mr. Kirk. I'm thinking about our new clerk, Ms. Carpenter, AKA your niece. But before I turn it over to Mr. Kirk for H2, you guys, I'm going to go over H1 myself. Only because this was the one that was deemed to me last time when we had our meeting. So I sent everybody out and it's also in the last email that I sent this morning, but I sent everybody that letter from the attorney talking about the Sunshine Law. So essentially, you guys, what he was saying, and a couple of things came out of that. First of all, I appreciate, Kristen, she was right on top of it. Kristen was like, what about like, what can we do here? This does not address this. I want to address all of that stuff right now. I did say that, and I just want to like make this point again, now that we're all here together, I did say that you guys, when I do send something out, you guys cannot reply back all. Okay, so if you guys have a question or something about anything I send out, you guys have to reply back to just me or me and the clerk.
So just to clarify, Omar, I thought that we could either reply just you or to all, but we couldn't reply to part of the block. So we can't reply all?
No, you can't reply all. You can reply to anybody that's going to be that's on the task force. You can reply to. I know. That's
Let me just say it's a wonder that anything gets done. That's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to all that. Just wait, Corey. I'm gonna let you speak on that, Corey. I'm gonna let you talk on that. So a couple of things about that. So first of all, you can't reply all because for example, just to put it into like kind of like real terms. So what you replied was great. So you replied like, well, Omar, this doesn't address this. But basically, if for you to send that and for me to answer that, we're having a meeting that's not in a meeting. Whatever comes out of this meeting, it can go into that Google Docs folder, but you guys can't do anything with it until the next meeting.
So to Kristen's concern, it completely defeats any productivity enhancement that we were looking to get.
And Courtney also responded to that email that I sent out, and he responded to just me, which is the correct thing to do. But and that was his concern. He was like, "Oh my, how does government get anything done?" I said, "Well, this is what we say." I said, "This is a good example of when people out there, like with the government, says like, man, you know what, like government takes so long." Like government moves why does government move so slow? Well, now you guys being in it, you guys now see why government moves so slow.
If it helps, I think the state of Florida and Colorado are the only two states with laws that are this restrictive. So
I told Courtney that also. I said, Courtney, not every state has what we call the sunshine law. Not every state has it. I said, what it's for is because this is the thing. And Courtney said, man, this is hard. Like you can't get anything done or anything like that or whatever. And I see that the clerk raised her hand. I'm gonna bring you in a second, Eunice. Give me 1 second. But like everything that that we go through and things like that. The problem is that politicians, a lot of us, we're not like you guys, right? And I was telling Courtney, I said, Courtney, a lot of people aren't like him and I or any of you here, to where if we didn't have a sunshine law, we would be able to, you go to a party, you talk to each other, you talk on the phone, and you only talk about your children or things like that. Politicians are corrupt, people. They'll be like, that would last 30 seconds. And then they'd be like, so what do you think about the bill we have coming up next week?
Yeah, they're wheeling and dealing all the time.
Think about that. Well, I'm against it. Well, why are you against it? You should really be for it. I think that, and that would happen within 30 seconds. And that's the problem.
Well, but how does sunshine law, I mean, you can still have lobbying efforts that happen completely outside of the sunshine. In fact, they do happen outside of the sunshine, right? This doesn't cover lobbying efforts as long as it's not a coordinated triangular pattern of communication, right?
And so I'm going to bring the clerk right. I'm going to go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, I was just going to say, you can, like, covered by the sunshine, can go meet with 50 other residents, and it doesn't have to be publicly noticed, and the sunshine law wouldn't apply. Nobody else is there. As soon as two of us are in the same place, then the sunshine law applies.
Exactly. I'm really clear.
The people who are making decisions should not be making decisions in the dark without it being
without the public knowing every decision that we make.
I just want to, for the record, I understand that piece of it. What I'm saying is that lobbying can happen under the sunshine rules. I can go have a meeting with a lobbyist as long as I don't bring someone else from my committee into that meeting. And as long as that lobbyist isn't saying, well, Courtney said, as long as that pattern doesn't happen where the lobbyist is coordinating the members,
Yeah.
Lobbying can happen completely out of view of Sunshine.
Well, that's why lobbyists are registered lobbyists, right? Because, so for example, you guys can talk to me. You guys can talk to me about anything, right? Because I'm not on that task force. Like anybody from Village Hall, the mayor can talk to you guys about anything that's coming on our thing because you guys aren't on the council.
Right, but so we have two issues. I think we all agree that for our purposes, the Sunshine Law, while we have to live with it, sucks. Okay, because we are not a lawmaking body. So at worst, we put forward a recommendation that either the council accepts or rejects. But that's the limit of our, quote, authority, which is why it's extra difficult to be hamstrung by these rules when we're not really, quote, in charge of deciding anything. But anyway, I don't think we're going to change that today. So
let me bring the clerk in really quick. Eunice, go ahead. The floor is yours, sister.
Hello.
That's you.
This is
Cute.
Hugh Gladwin in the Peanut Gallery.
We'll get that changed. All right, we'll get that changed. Kyle, can you work on that for us, please? Thank you very much. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Hugh.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned last time that I was for 4 years on the climate change task force of the county starting in 2006. And, you know, we had exactly the same power you do. We could put recommendations to the county commission and they had to act on them, you know, but it was the same nightmarish thing that you're talking about. However, I have one suggestion, which is the web page that's the sort of El Pertel information web page that we started. I'm thinking of having a little box on it called Task Force News, and I'll put up there anything that I think is relevant to the task force, like the link to the meeting that's on the website and so on. But I'll also put up any documents I happen to get that I think are relevant to the task force. And that would include any documents that any of you might send me. I think I can do that. You know, it's not like Google Docs where you can edit things and share them with each other, but at least it will be there. So that could help a little bit, just as a suggestion. Hi, there's the village clerk. I was impersonating you.
It's all good. Thank you, Hugh. I appreciate that, and I think that that's a great idea because that's something that can kind of act like what the Google Docs would have been, but it's on the village website, and it's just only that, and that's all that you guys can pretty much do is take whatever we come out of the meeting with, and it can just sit there for everybody to see, and you can work on that on your own in preparation for the next meeting. What's going on, Eunice? How you doing, sister?
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Eunice, good to see you.
Okay, so I was called because a lot of people are appearing with my name. I think there's one more other person. If they can just change that or identify themselves so you guys all know.
Yeah,
There's only one other person.
Wow.
Juan.
Hi, I'm
Juan.
Eunice. Nice to meet
Okay.
How are you doing, Juan?
I
Fine,
just wanted,
but they just want to change the names.
yes, I just wanted to pop in and let you know that if you need anything planning related, to just give me a shout and I'll join back in.
No problem, my brother. So this
Thanks,
is
Juan.
Juan. This is Juan from he's from Serbia, and he works on us with everything. Juan, introduce yourself, introduce your company, and tell us exactly what you lend to us in the village.
So we take care of planning and zoning for the village. We've been doing so for the last, I want to say 6 years, 5-6 years. And we are in the process of updating the comprehensive plan, which has a resiliency element to it, as well as environmental and other elements that are required by state to see what goals and objectives the village has. I don't want to take over this meeting at all. I just wanted, again, to pop in and offer our expertise if need be, and let us know. Otherwise, we'll sign off and get a, I assume that there's meeting minutes that are being put together for this. We'll review and then incorporate in the planning documents.
Thank you very much, Juan. I appreciate it. And yeah, for sure, appreciate it, Juan. Tell Camila I said what's up.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Juan. Appreciate that. Okay. And so, Eunice, I was explaining to them the seriousness of the Sunshine Law. We're about to get off that pretty soon, but I was explaining to them the seriousness of the Sunshine Law. I even wrote in the email that I sent, I wrote that this is, I know this is frustrating for you guys, but I'm here to protect all of you. I don't know if you guys saw that. And that's exactly what it is, you guys. I'm here to protect you guys because even though, and I don't know how other people do it or how another board or whatever, whoever might do it, but if anybody can come and request a public record request, correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
We get those all the time. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? We get a lot of them all the time from bloggers, from the Herald, from newspaper organizations, things like that. I don't want people, put it this way, somebody that might hate me just because I'm the liaison to this task force, somebody that might hate me politically might say, oh, let's pull all their communication records. I want to see all the emails and see if there any texts went to, each other's numbers for any reason about business or anything like that. I don't want, while I'm here, it is not going to happen to where any of you guys can't sleep well at night.
So, Omar, I hate to potentially overly complicate the issue because I am also.
You're good, sis.
Yeah. Well, no, I hope so, but I also understand the frustration with the Sunshine Law. But in reading the village attorney's legal memo, it seems like the Sunshine Law applied to you and the two of us from talking about something outside of publicly scheduled meeting. It wouldn't apply to Eunice. And I just want to make sure that if we're gonna do this and be hamstrung by it, like you said, we're gonna do it right and make sure we have all our, T's crossed, I's dotted. Because it says in just looking at the legal memo, the Sunshine Law does not apply to a meeting between individuals or members of different boards, which would seem to be you and I, unless one or more of the individuals has been delegated the authority to act on behalf of his or her board.
Yeah.
Like you've been delegated that authority.
Yes, absolutely. So the way I've been acting for you guys, I've been acting kind of like a quasi clerk in a way. Mm-hmm. I've just been moving around and kind of like organizing all of your things. And so if you notice that every time I do that, the clerk is also CC'd or she's on every single email. And so because of the clerk's workload, which is major, you guys have no idea, which is major. That's the only thing that I'm doing. I'm just doing that. I'm just moving things around for you guys and organizing, keeping things in one place, organizing the agenda and just things like that.
You don't think it's when we've always talked about this, we've said send it to either you or the clerk. So you don't think that's a problem? It doesn't just need to be the clerk?
No, that's not a problem. I actually spoke to the attorney about that specifically, and he gave me that his opinion on that. So thank you very much. Great observation, and thank you. I appreciate it.
If you want to keep us out of jail, we want to keep you out of jail.
Well, I appreciate that because my ex-wife had a different idea.
Oh my God, that's too much. I think I gotta sign off now. This is too much.
But for the record, I was found not guilty of all charges. So I'm just saying, everybody can accuse you of anything, but our beautiful country does have a system of law and justice that in the end does prevail. So I appreciate our great country for that. Thank you very much.
So Omar, are there additional questions or stuff that we on the committee, on the board have, or additional guidance that you want to provide? My notes basically say no replying all the communication sent from the clerk or vice mayor. All communication must be sent only to the clerk and vice mayor. And then we're concerned about the negative impact to our productivity, but there's not a whole hell of a lot we can do about it.
Yeah, it's not a lot you can do about it. I'm going to let the clerk speak really quickly before we move on to the next thing. But I just want to say, and she'll be able to tell you guys this for an example. Right now, we have we're going to send out RFP services for attorneys, applications for attorneys. Councilperson Urban, who said that, I think he said, I saw him earlier, he said that he was going to try to be on here a little bit later, but Councilperson Urban, he's the one that's going to be taking care of putting together that RFP. The manager started it, and he's going to take it, and he's going to edit it and revise it and things like that. Until the next open meeting, where that comes out, he can't send that to the clerk like tomorrow and say, hey, you guys, here's what it's going to look like. What do you guys think? We can't talk about that or make the changes until we're at the meeting. So you can't get things and work on them together like that until it's an open meeting. But Ms. Jacoby, I know you are serious about the Sunshine Law. You try to tell us all the time. So just any remarks that you might have before we move on to the next agenda.
Yeah, that's very important. You're not supposed to be sharing amongst you something that's going to come up for voting. It's not supposed to happen that way because you're not supposed to have any discussions. And that's one of the main reasons that the public has to have input and you're having this public meeting. So everything is out in the open. So a lot of people don't get that understanding. Even people who've been sitting there for years, they still don't, I don't know if it doesn't get through them, but it's something that is extremely important. You can't, if there's, the reason that I am putting that this has to be public is for public input and for you guys to speak about your public, in the eye of everyone of what's going on and everybody's in the same page. So if you start talking from one to another amongst yourself about something that's coming up for voting, that is not in the public eye. That is a violation of sunshine. Because that means that before you came to this meeting, you guys discussed among yourselves, where did the public have a chance to see that? Where's the transparency? Transparency, transparency, transparency.
So let me do a what if I could, and just, so we got from Kristen through either you or Omar a draft of an outline, right? That came through. That's fine to distribute to us. Is that correct?
If that is information only.
But we can't reply and say, oh, I think you should change line 1, 2, and 7.
You cannot reply all. Absolutely cannot
I know we can't reply all, but could we reply to you and say, here is my feedback, or no?
No, because I can also be, listen, I am not at the same level of sunshine that the board is, but I cannot get something from you and tell Omar or any other voting member, listen, this is what this person told me and this is what they're thinking. That's a violation of sunshine.
Yeah, exactly. So Courtney, so what she's trying to say basically is that even if if Kristen sends something out and you take and you say, oh, you know what, I think these should be the changes. Even if you do that and you send it to the clerk, you're wasting your time because the clerk can't tell anybody. And so it's not going to be discussed till the meeting happens. When the meeting happens, you can say it yourself in front of everybody.
So just so that we're clear on how we have to work, we can do work product and in between meetings get a one-time distribution so that people can come to the next meeting prepared and ready to discuss it. So I'm going to use the example of Kristen's outline. Kristen provided an outline. Let's assume I have 3 pages of notes on it. It was fine for her to send it to the clerk and you. It was fine for you guys to distribute it. It was fine for me to read it. But it is not fine for me outside of a meeting, public meeting, to provide my feedback and recommended changes. Is that correct? I see a thumbs up from Omar. What about the clerk? Is that accurate?
So explain it. I'm a little confused. So you're getting somebody, I don't know what the distribution was. It was a document that was distributed amongst you guys. One of you gets it and starts making notes on it.
So it was sent from Kristen to Omar and you.
Okay.
One of you, I'm guessing Omar, sent it out to all of us.
Okay.
That part is still fine. Am I correct?
That you're fine. Uh-huh.
Now, I read her document, her work product, and I say, oh, there's 25 changes I want to make. I have to hold my changes until we have the public meeting. I cannot provide that to everybody, even if I go through you.
No.
Okay.
Exactly.
You have to wait until a public meeting to have the discussion.
Right. So the key takeaway here, Courtney, as I see it, is that it's really important to prepare for meetings. Because what it means is that we need to do the work up front to review the documents and to make our notes about those changes so that when we're in meeting, if we've got a work product that we need to get finished, like everyone needs to hit the ground running because we don't have, half a day to do that. That's my takeaway, right? So that you can make notes and I can make notes, like we can all make notes and come in with our version and, and then composite it within the meeting in full view of everybody to create a document that we then vote on at the end of the meeting.
Which is too bad because that's what Microsoft Teams and Google docs allow you to do. But anyway, moving on.
Okay, I have one question to clarify.
You muted.
Okay, you got me now?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go back to Courtney's pages of notes. Could he present that in public to the clerk to correct these documents? Like, oh, here are all mine, I'm gonna say them quickly, but because we're recording, like, can he present something written so that it would be easier to correct these things, or he has to go through line item by line item and she has to sit there and diligently write everything, or can he just send the document and say, hey, I'm going to send you that document?
So if Courtney, if a paper goes out, Courtney gets the paper, he makes changes to it that he wants to make. Those changes, once the meeting is advertised, then the meeting is like, the public knows, hey, you guys, this meeting is coming. And once that meeting is advertised, all of the supporting documents can then be released for that meeting, so the public can see the supporting documents that go with that meeting for the agenda after the advertisement. So I don't know if does that kind of answer that? Because so when we have meetings, your niece publicly advertises the meeting, and then once she does that, everything that I want that's on the agenda, like if I say your niece, like put these here are some documents and supporting documents, and she'll add them and release those to the public.
Supporting documents are fine. It's your personal notes and your personal opinion of what needs to happen is the problem. Because if you can do that, then there'll be no need for this meeting, because you would be giving me your ideas, and I'll just put it out. No, this is why you have to have this open meeting. That's why out in the sunshine. It alleviates from having two members decide what's going to happen for the rest of the village, let's say, if that was the case, for the village. So it's like kind of a conspiracy theory, not having behind doors what the public needs to see, to have it in the public. So one of the things is that, to your point, I think that was the question, was that if he makes his own notes to give them to me in order for me to just put them together and say those are his notes. But that's his personal opinion. That's his notes. That's his view. So that's why you view it here, and collectively you guys make a decision. Where are you going to take from each of you?
For example, right now we're going through budget, right? Everybody has their own notes about budget, but we can't send them, we don't send them to your niece. We just get there at the meeting and then we're just all arguing about budget. Well, I think that, this salary should be this. Well, I think because this and that, and there's something else I want to change. And we have to do those arguments at the meeting itself. Like, I don't know what Claudia's going to come in. I don't know what Romar's going to come in with. I don't know what anybody's going to come in with in the meeting when we have our budget meetings. I have no idea what Claudia's going to come in with. No idea what Andres is going to come in with. I have no idea until we get to the meeting. And I'm like, oh, Andres wants to change that? Why would you want to change that? And
all right. So let me just ask from the board members, do we have any additional questions for Omar or Yanis, or are we pretty comfortable with or pretty aware of the restrictions and how we have to operate?
No, I'm crystal clear on it. Whatever document we create for review has to either be created in the meeting or it has to be resubmitted for acceptance in the meeting. We can't work on any version of or edit any version of a document between meetings, unless someone's going off and bringing back up a draft for review within the meeting. That's my understanding.
Yeah, my understanding is one person can make changes and distribute it, so we are ready to discuss it, but there can be no interaction between us between meetings. The interaction has to occur during the meeting. So, okay.
All right.
Okay, one last one, because I know we had where Courtney was sharing the screen and we were watching him edit. Is that okay during the Zoom?
During the meeting is beautiful.
One last thing, I do go to conferences and they do give me some booklets on Sunshine. If I find anything, I'll send it to all of you so you guys can have, just to take a look at. And sometimes it's a refresher and stuff like that. It's informative. I mean, it doesn't hurt. The more you know, the better it is. So when I'm going to go, I do have a lot going on right now, but when I have a chance, I promise I will send it to you guys. There's a lot going on. And I'm one person, but I will.
Thank you, Eunice.
Eunice, we appreciate it, man.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
So take care. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay.
All right. So the next one, I'm going to turn it over you guys to Mr. Kirk. This is the review and agreement of the board structure and roles. You guys, we got a little bit of help with this thanks to Maribel. If you guys had a chance to look at the North Bay Village structure, but otherwise, this is what we're talking about. Courtney Kirk, Mr. Kirk, the floor is yours, my brother.
Thanks, Omar. I read the link that Maribel provided via the clerk. Elizabeth, did you get a chance to reach out to any peers on the board and provide any feedback or structure or anything?
I did. So I called my contact that is, they have a board almost the exact same size of ours. And looking at the link that Maribel shared, it seems like we have the exact same resolution as well.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, that was really great. It's the exact same thing.
Yes.
I'm guessing it's League of Cities sponsored or focused and it just goes through.
Probably so. And, you know, I chatted with her for about an hour about the work that they're doing and took down some good notes about some preliminary programs and projects that they have. But I asked her about their structure and voting, quorum, all that kind of stuff. And she said they don't have anything separate from what their village follows. So whatever the village council does in terms of a quorum and needing a majority to pass items, that's what the task force does. Separate document.
Did they have any description or roles and responsibilities provided for the chair and or vice chair, and or if there were additional titled roles or responsibilities?
They have a chair and a vice chair, no other titled, and they also did not have any written description of what the chair and the vice chair did. So it seems like they hadn't proceeded from the same place that we're standing in now. So whether or not we want to do that is different, but that's kind of what they did.
Okay. Any, Kristen, Maribel, you want to chime in with anything?
I was researching and I found, I haven't actually been able to read it, but I took a look because the car was driving right by me on Miami Beach the other week and it said sustainability and it was a car and I was like, hey. So Miami Beach has one that I was going to start to take a look at and see if they have a more defined organization. It seems like they may because the dates were older on it on their website.
You know, it's been around for, Hugh may know exactly when it was formed, but it's been around for several years, for sure.
Okay.
And very tightly aligned with the Miami-Dade resilience effort.
Right. So how do you folks want to proceed regarding our structure? Last time we said, hey, you know, the chair and vice chair need to be nominated and approved. We're currently recommending Elizabeth as chair and Maribel. Good afternoon, Mr. Councilperson Urban. The chair and vice chair need to be nominated and approved by a voice vote. And we had recommended Elizabeth as chair and Maribel as vice chair. Can I make a suggestion that we move forward with that and have both Elizabeth and Maribel, I hate to say write job descriptions, but just write bullet points of roles and responsibilities that we potentially could approve next time so that we're comfortable that, hey, this is in fact what the chair is going to do, and no, the chair can't do that. Is that reasonable? Is that
I think
somebody thinks that's stupid?
And we get, perhaps that gives us a chance to if, you know, the city of Miami Beach has some of these things already delineated, that we can steal some of those for next meeting as well.
Beg, borrow, and repackage is a great idea. Okay.
And I know that I'm speaking to lawyers, so I'm not actually telling you anything that you don't already know. But I would recommend that we keep it as light as possible and as flexible as possible.
Sure.
Just because for a committee this size, we don't want to like be buried under the weight of our own procedures. So, and especially since we haven't really decided exactly how we want to tackle what we want to tackle and how we want to tackle it, that lighter is better, potentially.
Agreed.
Okay, so roll call. You want me to do it? I don't care.
I'll do it so I can get your vote also.
Very good.
So we'll do a roll call for first for Elizabeth Carpenter as the chair of the Resiliency and Sustainability Task Force. Let me have Maribel Fruitstone, yes or no?
Yes.
Kristen McLean, yes or no?
Yes.
Courtney Kirk, yes or no?
Yes.
Elizabeth Carpenter, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, we have 4-0 unanimous for Elizabeth Carpenter for the chair of the RNS Task Force. Congratulations, Ms. Carpenter.
Thank you, guys. Looking forward
And
to it.
with that, Madam Chair, it's up to you whether you'd like me to continue to go through today's agenda or whether you'd like to take over, and I'm comfortable with either. There's no ego here, so whatever you want.
Yeah, honestly, either one works fine with me. I'm happy to do either. Do we want to, I know we had talked about in terms of minutes and things like that for the meetings, do we want to appoint either, myself or Maribel as the person in charge of taking minutes?
Yeah, let me interject real quick. Let's do the
We need to do the vice chair. We need to do a vice chair.
Let's do the vice chair first. So let's do the motion and the second, Courtney. I'll let you do that, and then I'll do the roll.
Well, since we have a chair now, I'll move that I'm going to nominate and Maribel Fruitstone as vice chair for this board.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Mr. Kirk. We have a second by Chair Carpenter. This is for the vice chair. We'll start with Kristen McLean, yes or no?
Yes.
Courtney Kirk, yes or no?
Yes.
Chair Carpenter, yes or no?
Yes.
And since you were up for it, I left you for last. Ms. Fruitstone, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you very much. 4-0, it's unanimous. Vice Chair, Ms. Maribel Fruitstone. Madam Chair, the floor is yours, or Courtney Kirk. I don't know what you guys are going to do. I'm out of it now.
Well,
I'm going
great.
to defer to the chair. You tell me what you'd like me to do.
Well, what are your guys' thoughts on minutes? Should we have either Maribel or myself take minutes consistently, or Courtney, do you want to continue that role? Just kind of filling everybody's interest in that.
I will execute I'm a good soldier. I will execute what I'm told to do. So if you want to do it, or if the vice chair wants to do it, that's fine. If you would like me to do it, I will continue in a similar format to what I had done previously, but completely up to you guys.
I want to nominate Courtney for that because he's awesome at it. Just saying.
I would agree with that.
I third it because I'm visual and I love it. This was spectacular.
Okay, not a problem. I will continue. Just to take notes, you guys are, Elizabeth, you're chairing it, so I'm just listening.
All right, so great. Thank you guys very much. As I mentioned in our first meeting, I'm just very excited to be involved in this and now excited to be chair, so thank you guys. So that was H3, election of chair and vice chair. Moving to agenda item H4, the first update on action plan for storm safety. So this is, I think our working document right now is the document that sent out via the clerk just a few days ago. Is that right?
Yes, Ms. McLean actually put that together with Hugh. So you might want to bring them in on this discussion, Madam Chair.
Great, I'm just pulling that up now. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for sending out that email with all of the documents compiled. That was very helpful. So did everybody, my kind of thought was that this is a great document providing, a single page recommendation for our initial plan. And this is the plan that we want to move forward on as soon as possible. Luckily, we got lucky with the storm this weekend. But as we had discussed, it'd be great to have something like this kind of already established before we have another incident like that pop up on us. So did everyone get a chance to read the document?
Yes.
And does anybody have any initial I thought it was great. It was my initial. And I guess it makes sense to walk through it with people's thoughts, comments. And I think there's a good chance, if everyone agrees, to just go ahead and make the changes as we discuss.
Sounds good to me.
So is Kristen going to make the changes in the live document? Like, how do you want to work that?
Kristen, does that work with you since
Totally fine. Yep. I have the document up in front of me. So
Okay.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Okay, so do you want me to just walk you through our thoughts in putting this together? We can see if people have comments or questions on each of the bullets. You can see that we've already highlighted and colored things that we had had questions about, or that the council might have questions about or want to look at specifically as they consider this. And just to lay the foundation for this conversation, part of why we want to move quickly on this and submit it to the council is the obvious time crunch that we're under. And to your point, we just had a miss on a storm, but we could get another storm any day. So what Hugh and Adam and I tried to put together here was an achievable plan that could be executed on the local level to make sure that the residents of El Portal have good information, have good warning, and have a plan in place in case of a major storm event that we could really execute immediately. So the first, and Hugh, for the record, I think everybody knows, but Hugh's on the call. So if we have specific science questions, he's available to answer them. So the first bullet point here is really just to define different zones for the village that are related to the height of the plot above sea level, because we have distinct areas in the village that are subject to nuisance flooding. But then in the case of a moderate or major storm, there are other houses that will be impacted that are not normally used to thinking of themselves as being in a flood zone. So we tried to give some guidance in the first bullet point about what we think is a good kind of yardstick for what those three areas might be. And we do have, and it was included in Hugh's document, we do have the actual elevations for the entire village where we could literally go through and define those areas on a map today. Does anybody have any questions about what we?
Yeah, Kristen.
Yep.
So this is I read this in conjunction with the Hugh, Adam, and your kind of document, because to me that was some additional meat and rationale behind this. Was that the intention?
Yeah. So these recommendations are generated, after we as a group worked on, Hugh mostly put together that other document. So these were recommendations that are directly in response to the science and thinking that are in Hugh's documents.
Okay, so just so I understand, this stuff here, the immediate is the Band-Aid. This is just, we need to do something as storms come in, as rain comes in, for the low-lying areas, for the moderate, for the high, as appropriate. And the things that we basically are saying is we want to communicate to people, we want to allow sandbags in some method, and we want to do an evacuation plan.
Correct.
The fourth bullet there, the fourth bullet for the storm monitoring protocol is simply somebody to back up Hugh. Is that the idea?
So Hugh's already started to do this work independently. And I don't think, and I think one of the beauties of Hugh doing it independently is that we can just move quickly and, in a good enough sort of situation, and just have a quick place to centralize the information. So the question, though, is whether or not we certainly want someone to be able to do what Hugh is doing in case for some reason Hugh is unable to do it. And so what I'm suggesting here is that perhaps we want to train somebody else in, so we have, or more than one person, that we have people who understand that they can actually go themselves and check the water levels at every South Florida water management structure. There's a website right now where you can actually go look at that water, and we can monitor in the structures and the levels that are relevant to us in the village, so that doesn't come as a complete surprise when the water is up, and we can have some guidance on that. And then also the count, I think the other thing that's really important for us to make sure that more than one person knows about is the fact that the county actually puts out flood guidance, and they put out flood guidance for Irma 2 days in advance that we didn't know about. Like the houses that got flooded during Irma, there was 2 days notice from the county. If we had known about it at the time, it would have changed the plans for a lot of people who actually experienced that, right? Like we wouldn't have sheltered in our house if we had known that that was coming. And that was true for a lot of neighbors in these lower lying areas. So I'm suggesting that, you know, that there's value in the village to having a highly local plan for just monitoring the sources of information that are already available so that we can have better warning for our village. Sorry, that was a little long-winded. I'm agreeing with you, Courtney.
Okay, so I would suggest that for a focus, for our short term, I would remove that bullet item. While I agree with you, it's incredibly important. I think the other 4 items are very direct and tangible, that you can say, hey, we are expecting, based on whatever the data shows, a moderate flooding. So we need to communicate with houses in the modest and moderate group. We need to be able to identify those. We need to communicate, we need to give them sandbags, and we need to do an evacuation plan. To me, those are very tangible things, whereas the storm monitoring protocol, I think we might want to have as a separate item.
Well, and as we're saying this, I now with my other hat on, with my River Conservancy hat, I think there's benefits to keeping that idea out of this committee and out of the village. Not out of it, but I mean having it actually executed and owned by a community group, because that way it can operate independently and and can be very nimble. And I know that, I mean, Hugh and Adam and I will continue to work on that. Hugh's already got it up and running. So I think we can manage that on the side as a community project.
I think because I look at the others as something that government certainly could effectively contribute to and support and manage. You know, we come up with a recommendation for the 3 zones. We come up with how we should do the networking and communication. We come up with suggestions on sandbags, or work with the village manager on sandbags or whatever. And we come up with a recommendation for evacuation plans, working with whomever. I think those are things that we can use the village to help manage and direct, whereas the other one, I agree with you, might be better as a community supported item.
Okay. I'm actually, to the person who's running the meeting, I'm actually going to come in on my computer, not in addition to my phone, so that I can actually do the editing of this in view of the recording. So bear with me for 1 second while I do that. But I agree. So we're going to strike that. We're going to strike that that point.
Hello, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Okay. A couple things just in terms of what Courtney said about striking that item. I also agree for the reasons that Kristen said, but also if you go to the site right now, this early warning site, I don't know if I'm having trouble with stuff, so maybe you could pull it up, Omar. But what you'll see there is that having gone through this past week with this hurricane, I sort of was able to narrow down on the really critical pieces of information that we need to, that are necessary to do this kind of 2-day warning projection of flooding for the village. So I'm now going to be setting up, and it's there on the site now, setting up so it's almost in a form type of thing, which I'll fill in, but it will kind of generate the warning estimate. I don't know, Omar, could you pull it up? Is it possible to?
I can, yeah, I will pull it up right now.
Yeah, just quickly to. While you're doing that, I just want to make a correction to what you said, Kristen. The warning for flood, from storm surge for Irma was from the National Hurricane Center, not the county. And I think in all the confusion, the county wasn't able to incorporate that in their evacuation plan. So the county actually told the people where you live, which was the worst flooding prediction, not to evacuate.
Correct.
Which is one of the issues that we talk about in the report. Anyway, I just wanted to say that the, you know, it's sort of building in that section that we're deleting. So it'll be very straightforward how the kind of warning planning works, and anybody could do it. Thank you.
All right, guys, sorry.
So,
trouble toggling between two different, there we go.
okay.
Can you guys see that there? Yeah.
Okay, so if you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see, I mean, I'll be adding to this, but there's something on the, everything is linked here, and there's something on the South Florida Water Management that gives the total upstream water amounts in the basin since 7 a.m. You know, and what happens is, like, if there's a situation, every 2 hours, I will check that and fill it in. And it will be like an expanding thing that generates an idea of how much water is in the system above us. I mean, to cause these severe flooding events in the village, we need something in the order of around 6 inches of rain per hour with a big water buildup. So that will give us that, you know, kind of maybe 12-hour warning of the situation. And I'll be adding in there the, you know, the gauges that tell us the water level in the river. It'll be just sort of a click on a link, get the information from the Water Management District site, plug in the numbers, and it will give an idea. So it'll be pretty automated in case I can't do it, you know, and they'll be like every 2 hours. So this will be repeated every 2 hours. And
it does occur to me. So the one thing that I'm going to toggle back now to the document.
Yeah.
So the one thing that really isn't in here, and maybe, I mean, I guess it falls under this last bullet point, is just, well, we don't specifically, well, we do here. I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. Just at what point does the input, the science input, inform a decision in the village to alert residents, right? And I guess it would be in the second bullet point, which is the storm communication plan, right? Where,
yeah, I was going to add to that is that these categories at the top seem great, but I think that should be what informs the communication, you know, crime watch structure phone tree in the second one. So, you know, if we group residents into those 3 different categories, then we can, you know, have a plan based on that in terms of,
so something like use the 3 flood zones.
Well, can I say something again on that?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So the way we've kind of talked is the critical line is 5 feet, you know, and a really 5 feet, if your house elevation is under 5 feet, you're at risk for nuisance flooding, as we call it, which can be pretty bad, getting 2 feet of water in your house.
I wondered about that term. I'm in that category, and I was like, nuisance.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, nuisance is what we had a couple of weeks ago, right? It comes up and it goes down, and those of us who have to deal with it.
The National Hurricane Center calls anything a nuisance that you won't die from, which is pretty drastic. But so given that 5 feet thing, I think we can get the word out to people both by showing them the map. There's a map in the report that shows the areas of the village under 5 feet, but also tell people that they need to fill out the elevation of their own home. And in the, what I would call the information page, if you scroll down to the bottom, it says, flood planning, and you go down and there's 2 maps. And these are these super high resolution. If you click on them, you go into super high resolution, the county 5-foot LiDAR elevation map, and you can find your house in there and figure out the exact elevation to the nearest foot.
Right. So Q, let's.
So the idea would be, if I could just sort of conclude, is, you know, prepare for, you know, these two conditions. Prepare to evacuate in a major flood hurricane event, you know, prepare to sandbag or whatever. And the other one, if you're under 5 feet, and you can figure out on your own under 5 feet. We don't need to put out a list or anything like that if people can figure it out on their own.
So are you suggesting, I mean, I'm proposing in this thing that it's really good for the village to have a list. I'm not saying they have to publish a list, but I think it's really good for the village to know exactly which plots and which residents are going to be at risk in each of these scenarios.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you agree? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree for the village, and I've already generated the list, but, you know, so I can certainly give that to the village. It's just like, for communication, you know, to me, as I said in the report, the big thing is people need to know ahead of time if they're in this 5-foot zone, so they can be ready. You know, then the village can use the list. You know, everybody in the 5-foot zone, I presume, you know, if a big event is coming and they're going to have to evacuate in 5 feet, I would presume that, you know, the police would be out notifying everybody in that area.
So the reason that I did 4 feet, 6 feet, and 8 feet, thinking about that 5 foot, was that we would have a little bit of a margin of error for the houses. You know, if you're under 4 feet, you may not get nuisance flooding, but you do often get nuisance flooding. If you're under 3 feet, you always get nuisance flooding.
Mm-hmm.
So if your lot is at 5 feet or right on the break point of 5 feet, if you go to 6 feet, then you have a little bit of a margin of error for protecting people. Are you okay with the 4 feet? I mean, we reviewed this, so this is not new, but
yeah,
4
I'm
feet,
okay.
6
I'm
feet.
okay for the so-called nuisance flooding.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's better for hurricanes, you know, and life-threatening events if we have a very simple, clear cutoff point. I mean, if you're under 5 feet, you need to have an evacuation plan ready. You need to be ready to evacuate.
Well, that's what I'm saying here. I'm just going 1 foot higher. I'm just saying the houses under 6 feet should have that plan.
Yeah. Well, I'd go with that. It's just I think the maximum flooding we could possibly get if the FEC Railroad Bridge was completely plugged up with debris is 9 feet. So if you're 6 feet, you have 3 feet of water in your house, that's considered survivable. And the thing is, the chances of that happening are very, very, very slight. That's why I kind of would prefer to go to 5 rather than 6, but, you know, who knows?
But I'd be careful that we don't include everybody and water it down. And I'm not sure of the scientific balance there, in that you want to make sure that people respond to it because they do feel that it's valid. If we cry wolf too many times, I'm afraid people might be less receptive to responding to it. And I'm not saying that your 5 feet, 6 foot isn't the right decision to make. I'm just cautioning.
Yeah, I mean, if we do this, you know, this is sort of within ourselves. I haven't discussed this with, you know, anybody yet. There's a lot of stuff in the report that, for example, I think, you know, I've read a lot. I think what I say about water going through the aquifer is correct. I've been at tons of meetings where it's discussed, but I would like to have it reviewed by, you know, the scientist I know who's like the world expert on it here and some of the other things. So, you know, I think our final decision about 5 feet versus 6 feet needs to be reviewed, I think, by expert people, you know.
Well, so the one thing I don't want to have happen is us not be able to execute on this
Right.
because we need to have somebody sign off on it. So Hugh, is your concern that 6 feet is, by leaving it at 6, I mean, it seems to me like we could say, so tell me again, the most likely scenario, not like a major 9-foot, but like what would fall in the middle of this, right? Not nuisance flooding, but not 9 feet either. What do you think is the most reasonable, like, middle flood level? 7 feet?
7 to 8 feet.
Right. So that would be for lots that are.
I'd say 8 feet.
Right. So a house like mine, that's 5 feet. 5 feet of water on the house. Like, so we would need to be out of this house, and anybody below. Well, I still think 4 feet. If your lot is at 4 feet. If your lot is at 6 feet and you get 8 feet.
If your lot is at 4 feet, then if your lot is at 4 feet and we have 8 feet, you have 4 feet of water in your house. Right. You need to get out.
So if your house is at 5 feet, you'd have 3 feet. You should be out. Yeah. If your house is at 6 feet, you'd have 2 feet. I still think you should probably, that those people should consider evacuating because their cars are going to be in 2 feet of water and they're going to have water in their house in that situation.
Well, I think we tell people that, the thing is,
I think
you want to order people to evacuate who are at risk of death.
So I think some of this, I would suggest perhaps, Kristen, that you reevaluate and get some confidence to say, hey, we thought through 4 feet is the right answer. Because I'll speak for myself, I don't have a good feel for any of the science behind it to be able to say that makes sense or to be able to debate with you. I don't have that background. So I'm going to lean on you and Hugh and other scientific type folks to say, here's why, here's what it will do. Here's why we need to go with 5 feet because we're concerned if it's more than 2 feet in your house, it's life threatening or whatever the numbers are. And kind of have some good solid backing of science to say, this is what we need to do.
So I guess I'm a little confused about why, because we reviewed this document before this meeting. Hugh, why we can't have an extra foot of margin? That's actually moving us a foot towards safety as opposed to a foot back.
Yeah, well, no, right? I would agree with that.
So leaving it at 6 feet gives us just a little bit of room to make sure that we've got everybody under the umbrella, right?
We'll go with that.
And just to add something to the point that was made about having some of the wanting any second opinion on the scientific part of this, I would suggest that we pass something, in the next few weeks as soon as possible for this hurricane season. And then once hurricane season is over, we can always develop a more comprehensive or broader program for next hurricane season or next, flood times.
Sounds good to me. If I'm not a member, though.
Okay, so Kristen, I actually really, I think this is great. I think we might want to start making it actionable and dumb enough for people. And by that, I just mean red, yellow, green. I don't mean that people are stupid. I just mean easy to digest. So some kind of, as we go through the actions, if this, then this, here's why it's red. You can, and what they can expect. You're in the 3 to 5 foot zone. You can expect 2 feet of water in your garage. You can expect a foot in your house. This is what we recommend you do. And almost make it flow chart type thing where you can say, if this, then this, and here's how we're going to do it.
And I have a question on that too, Courtney. I think that sounds great, but my question is to Vice Mayor Nickerson. In terms of what the village council is looking for, are they looking for a completely finished document that they can just vote on and it becomes accepted, or are we supposed to make aspirational recommendations to them similar to this document where we need to develop a plan, we need to group the flood risk homes by these areas? Like, is it somewhere in the middle, or is it up to us?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, because with something like flooding, right, it's not, it can change and it can adjust, it can get worse. Certain areas can get worse. So I think that you guys just need to give us a plan of what you guys want us to work with right now. And we can do it as a resolution, like not an ordinance, which an ordinance is much harder to it's something that's different. We can do it as a resolution to where we can update that resolution with a new resolution at any time. So.
Okay, and to that same, thank you for that was very helpful. And to the same point though, if we say something, our recommendation to the village council is that X and Y need to be evaluated, is the village then empowered to go hire an expert that can do that evaluation for us?
Yeah, it just depends. It depends on, what you guys want. It depends on how large the evaluation is. It depends on, we have the first and second budget budget meetings in September. So that'll say a lot. But definitely, absolutely. But we won't know unless you guys tell us what you guys want us to evaluate. So we need that information, as detailed as possible, so we know we're doing the right thing, exactly what you guys recommend.
Yeah, and I'm confident, Elizabeth, that there's resources at the county level to help us do this. Like there's the Resilience office and Hugh, we have the contacts already that could probably give us an opinion about this. So
we could do internally within the task force and then present to the village council.
No, I like let me just say, I'm pretty confident in the recommendations that we're making right now as I'm like short-term plan of action. I think and I like Courtney's idea that we pass something, but then you can see I wrote in a committee suggestion just that for next year, as we continue to revisit and improve this, that we might want to have it reviewed, or we may find through practical application that there are changes that we're going to want to make, or that the village is going to want to make. So I think that we should pass a draft of this.
I agree.
Over.
Gotcha.
And let the village, and I don't know, Omar, under which committee this would probably fall. It's public safety. It's public safety, right? So
no, well, all right. Well, the chief is on here, which I suggest that before we wrap the meeting up and we get off of this topic, that you guys see, if he has anything he wants to say or anything like that. I also see Councilperson Erbaum's hand is up. And you can just
my hands up again.
And Hugh's hands up again also. But this would be, I would say this would be under either Public Works and Planning and Zoning.
Just a reminder, Kristen, we can see your screen.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yep.
And sometimes, you guys, we do have things that go under multiple committees also, so keep that in mind. Like we'll have, we have something right now. We have the whole thing with the Airbnb situation that's under 2 different committees. And Councilperson Erbaum is one of the chairs of the committee that's under. So we can't have something that's under, for example, Public Works and something that's under Public Safety. I definitely think Public Works needs to touch this though also.
Right, Omar, I'm just looking at it's August 5th. Let's assume that at our next meeting, the 26th, we come up with the perfect draft, we all agree on it, etc. By the time that gets through committees and gets through village council, we're probably close to done with hurricane season. I mean, let's be realistic, because you guys won't be able to talk about it until you actually see it. So I almost want to say what I suggest we do is work with you as well as with the village manager and the chief to say, here's our recommendation. We're going to bring it to the council as well. But as long as there's nothing that you see negative, if there's money in the budget for the whatever things we need, sandbags or whatever, then let's try and get this working for this hurricane season rather than waiting for get approved on November 30th kind of thing.
But all right, so in September we have not only our 2 budget meetings, but we also have committee meetings in September. So let's say if we have our next meeting, I think it was the 26th. If we pass that, it can go to committee in the beginning of September, and then it can come out of that committee and be ready for the full council meeting at September council meeting, the 4th Tuesday.
Could we not have a special, emergency council meeting to pass something like this, given how quickly?
Yeah, the problem is that's money. That's money each time we do a meeting. At least while we're using full moon, it's a fair amount, a fair chunk of change.
I think it's if it makes sense. I think that unless somebody tells me for sunshine purposes we can't do this, I like the idea that we would at least pass. Can we pass a copy back to the clerk and to the chief for I don't know, as a short term. I don't know what we're prevented from doing or not doing, but just as a guideline for a storm that comes tomorrow, there's practical ideas in this that we could implement right away.
Right. It doesn't seem like we need the village council to pass a resolution to buy sandbags. Is that correct?
Well, it depends on whose money we're using.
Yeah.
It depends on the committee.
Yeah.
Could you hear from Anders and then me, please?
So to the chair,
I think we have some important comments.
Madam Chair, it's up to you to bring in.
Absolutely. Can I don't have permission to unmute anybody.
Yeah, that's fine. I can unmute. So I just want to make a couple statements because I want to be cautious about getting too far into discussion, at least between myself and the vice mayor. So I'm just going to backtrack a little bit and then get back to where we're talking about now. So I absolutely am thrilled and love Hugh's website. It's phenomenal. It's straightforward. It's clear. I've had a lot of fun already hanging out on it. But one thing I noticed was that the vast majority of the village it looks like to be at 6 feet. So if we made a declaration of 6 feet and less, then we would be looking at, anytime we issue that order, an evacuation order for the majority of the village. And so, go ahead.
Like to go back to 5 feet then?
Yeah, personally, I would think that would be ideal, because then you are really forcing yourself to make that decision. You're not forcing. Let me think about this. With leaving it at 6 feet, you are creating a large percentage at the top of your data set, right, of when you're going to issue this order, of a lot of people who really probably may not be affected. I'm a little bit confused, I must say, because as we're talking about the 3 different levels, nuisance, moderate, major, right, would there not be 3 different evacuation classifications as well? And so
yes, absolutely.
So if we're just talking about that upper one, if we're the 6 feet is for which classification exactly? That discussion of 5 versus 6 feet. Which flooding classification are we talking about?
So that would be an up to 8 feet, 6 to 8 foot scenario.
6 to 8 foot scenario. Okay, so maybe 6 feet. Maybe leaving it at 6 feet is wise then.
But to your point, I mean, but to be honest, a 6 foot to an 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot, there's not that much difference. Like, we're going to be looking at evacuating pretty large chunks of the village at that level anyway, right?
Okay, so I'll move on from that. I just want to put that out there that it looks like the largest percentage of most homes in El Portal average is easily around 6 feet. So, so if you're trying to narrow it down to really only issuing that order for the people it truly is going to impact, then that is a tricky discussion because it's a large number of homes jumping from 5 feet to 6 feet. You are bringing in a much larger number of homes that's going to be affected.
I think in the middle moderate level, we're really talking about adding 87th Street on the west side, really, to that.
Okay.
Above 87th, it starts to get higher, but I would need to look at 88th Street actually in that scenario. I mean, we're really talking about 86th, 87th as being
right. And then I think headed into next hurricane season, I think we have plenty of time to really kind of get wonkish about those numbers and narrow that down. So for me, if we're making a recommendation, before the end of this hurricane season, I'm at 5 feet just for this year, just to see, how that goes. And then in terms of getting in front of the council, if this task force so first of all, I believe that this task force is the aspirational body, not necessarily the council. And so my thought process is that all aspirations should be essentially hammered out here in the task force, and then largely whole items should be presented to the council. But then in the fact that the council created this task force, is it not possible for us to just put an issue on an agenda in front of the general council at the meeting at the end, like, the general council meeting for September, for example? Would it not be possible for us to simply add an agenda item in front of the council regarding an evacuation plan? Does that need to go through committees? I'm just asking this as a question that we'll hammer out.
Andrew, do you mean bypassing the committees and going straight to
That's exactly what I mean. That's exactly what I mean, because this is essentially the committee, the task force. This, again, for me, this is where all of those get hammered out, and I feel like the task force should be presenting largely whole items to the full council at general council meetings, unless it's something, very specific. But for example, with evacuation, we're talking about public safety, planning and zoning, public works. We're even talking about code enforcement, because code enforcement should be out ahead of, more active during hurricane season, for example, for, debris and things like this. But I don't see an issue with bringing things directly to council whenever the task force is ready to present. So those are my comments, and thank you.
Thank you. I just want to give Hugh a chance to speak since he's had his hand up for a while.
Okay. Thank you so much, Anders. You have distilled 25 years of my experience in some really hairy situations, but I agree with you on 5 feet. You don't order evacuation for people who are not at risk of death, period. No, that's one thing. Somebody needs to be muted because, okay. Can you hear me?
Maribel? There we go.
Okay, good. So the second thing is, let me say this. 2 weeks ago when Kristen and Adam and I presented this report, the main thing was about an evacuation plan for the village. And we presented, and a lot of other things in the report too, but the main thing was the evacuation plan for the village. And we presented it formally at that Zoom meeting to the people in the village that run the evacuation plan. When the county activates for emergency situation, every municipality has municipal leaders that have to transmit and issue evacuation orders for their municipality. And for this municipality, that is the police chief, the village manager, and the mayor representing the council. So we officially presented that to them. So, this task force can recommend to the council the evacuation plan, but the actual official next step is those 3 people I just mentioned have to meet with the county emergency management and say, hey, we in El Portal have evaluated our risks in a major flood event, and we feel to protect lives in the village, we have to go with our own evacuation plan as follows. So, I think that step is between the three of them and emergency management. And at that meeting, this is, since I'm connected with emergency management because I'm on the steering committee of the local mitigation strategy, blah, blah, blah. I've raised this issue a few times in the past 4 or 5 years with the county emergency manager. And we can do that immediately. So I think that's, and you're listening, Chief Magnuson, so you could respond to that. But I think that step the village has to do immediately to get this implemented. I would still go with the 5-foot recommendation. We can give a list to the village of houses at that level, but we can also communicate to villagers that if there is an evacuation, if you're under 5 feet and a hurricane's coming, if you're under 5 feet, you need to prepare to evacuate, as it sort of says in the report. So that's what I have to say on this.
Okay.
Maybe Chief Magnuson could say something too.
I'm in full agreement. And first of all, I want to take a step back and thank you. Over the weekend, I know we were back and forth with emails with that storm approaching, and your wealth of information was great, and I appreciate that. Now, moving forward here, I think that is a good idea. I think time is of the essence. Listen, we're only in July, and to be quite frank, the hurricane season, really, where you got to open your ears and eyes, is September and October. And maybe beyond, who knows what they just came out with today in the University of Colorado. So,
God, that was...
yeah, we're going back to the Greek alphabet. It looks like we did back in 05. That being said, yes, time's of the essence. I think this is a good idea. I'll certainly push for this, and I'll brief the manager on this. And this is something we can work on right away. It shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. There's constant meetings anyway with them, and I'm sending reports daily, so that shouldn't be a problem to get this point across.
All right, I'm going to move this actually up to the top because I think this is important.
So just to review for a second, we agree that we need to come up with something that is, quote, complete, at least for this season, and be able to present that to the council, hopefully with either the vice mayor or Councilperson Urbum as somebody to bring it up so it doesn't have to go through a ton of committees and waste time for this year. And then is the approach now that Kristen, and to throw the work at you, are you going to be basically taking this from the bullet points and putting together a, quote, full document? Are we going to section it out to different people? What's the approach we want to take it from this?
I think we should just clean up this document, integrate the changes we've made today. We could pass it one more time as a finished. I don't think that we could put it on letterhead, but I don't think we have to make it fancy. I think that we can get a document that addresses the key points, integrates the feedback we have right now. I don't know if we want to pass it. I don't know, Omar and Madam Chairwoman, what you think is the right process, but I would recommend that we maybe take one more pass at a clean document, and then I think we should pass it up to the council.
I agree. I think that just in watching all the notes that you've made, I think these are great. I think we just need to parse out some of the red line things, specify desired target for advanced warning. It seems like.
Yeah, that was the one thing I think a 2 day, do you think 2 days is a reasonable advanced warning goal, aspiration? What do you think? 24 hours?
I don't know if he needs to be let in or not.
Is he muted?
He
No,
is not.
I'm here. I muted myself. I'm sorry. Yeah.
What do you, 24 hours, 48 hours? What do you think
Okay.
is
Yeah.
an
I
aspirational
think
goal?
there's two things going on. One is our notion of any kind of heavy duty flooding in the village, you know, whether part of a hurricane or not. And that has to do with, you know, we could do that 24 hours ahead for either condition by looking at the amount of forecast rainfall or whatever. But for a hurricane situation, then we're talking a further lead time.
Yeah.
And a couple things here is, you know, normally everything works on kind of a 48-hour cycle. 48 hours, we get the high resolution storm surge forecast. We're getting better rainfall forecasts. 48 hours, you know, the thing is, I'm sorry if I'm not being clear, but the thing is, anytime a big hurricane or even middle-sized hurricane approaches us, if it hits, there's always the danger, no matter what, of very heavy rainfall, which means we could go into the, you know, the necessity of absolutely evacuating people under 5 feet if that's the amount. So there's kind of two things. One is, you know, we want to make sure that everybody's on track, that we're adding to all the official warnings 48 hours and before. You know, but then for flooding that's outside of a major hurricane, you know, like just really heavy rainfalls conditions, I can do 24 hours now. I'm pretty confident of being able to do 24 hours, but that's about it. I mean, but that's really for people at low elevations that we are recommending they need to get sandbags and be set up so they would be able to protect their house from 2 or 3 feet of water coming in it.
Okay, so I think we put it as a goal, right? It's a goal that we do 24 hours, try to get 24 hours notice for nuisance flooding and 48 hours for an evacuation scenario. And
Can I chime in on
Hours
something?
enough? I mean, I'm just thinking if we're talking 48 hours for an evacuation, that seems very short to me.
No, yeah,
Because you could be out of the state 48 hours ahead of time if it's a big one.
no,
Well,
it's not 48 hours. I mean, my recommendation is if you're in this under 5 feet evacuation zone, you be ready to evacuate. You know, so really it would be 3 days ahead of time. It would be, we're looking at this hurricane coming. You know, you'll know 48 hours ahead of time that you have to evacuate. Now, 48 hours only works for evacuation for people who have a place to evacuate that's nearby, you know, and this gets to the whole COVID thing and everything else, you know. That's why.
well, so I think what you're saying is that maybe there's a separate bullet in here where that we need to actually have a communication plan to put people on notice to prepare to evacuate.
Yes, yes. And
which is
have a
different than
place-
actually evacuating, right?
Right. No, and have people be ready to go.
Chief Magnuson, were you trying to speak on this point?
Yeah, well, first of all, with that evacuation, you're also going to have everybody else, not just the village of El Portel, doing the same thing. So,
Right.
In keeping an eye and ear out for the villagers, yeah, I think it was answered just a few seconds ago. Maybe some notice before that. It's not a bad idea. I mean, in the past, people would go check in. You don't have to clear the state. Go mid-state somewhere and get into a hotel. Well, with COVID, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. You may have to clear the state. You may have to find some place that last year that wasn't an issue. The 24-hour thing for the nuisance is fine, and I say that only because it's probably only going to deal with residents of El Portel, so them getting out, they're not going to run into a bunch of traffic or long lines at gas stations. That'll be a very easy, convenient thing for them to do. The only thing I would say for the villagers here and looking out for them is giving them, like you said, that heads up so they can get a jump on people before everybody does start evacuating and it becomes, pandemonium going northbound. That would be the only thing, and the only downfall to that is hurricane tracks change, and it may change. Well, you're a little inconvenienced, but you did the right thing and the safe thing. I think people wait a little too long sometimes thinking tracks are going to change, and they don't. So I think that's good. I think the notice that, hey, this is what's going on, just a heads up, maybe in the next 12 to 24 hours, you're going to have to evacuate, and let people make that decision that maybe we should just shut her up and get out of here right now while the going's good and beat the crowd. Just a thought. So that notice that you just mentioned, I think is a very good idea.
Great. So it seems like there's a few other things, great stuff that's in here that we need to add to before we can kind of present a full plan, like just looking down the list. Activate a flood communication plan. So, do we need to develop a flood communication plan, or is that something we'd like to leave to the village council? And some of the other things, just looking down, that are things we need to input in here back to kind of what Courtney suggested. And I'll defer to you on this, Kristen. Is this something that you kind of want to fill out the rest of those things, or you'd like to divide amongst each of us to develop and, reconvene at the next task force meeting?
I think in terms of I feel pretty confident in being able to just put this together. And if people we've already brought up things like Courtney's suggestion about creating some specific zone related material for residents that explains what would happen in each one of those scenarios, right? Designating zones with colors. I think, an advanced campaign, a kind of an awareness campaign separate from what the county puts out, that is basically like, residents of El Portal, we are at increased risk for flooding, in the time of COVID. I mean, a specific communication piece from the village to maybe houses in zones 1 and 2 that just says, the village is, working on this, and we want you to be aware and we want you to prepare. So, I mean, that type of stuff, I think I can probably put together the basics of a program that will get us started. And as we've already said, we're going to then iterate on this as we move forward. I'm happy to just get it done.
Great. Thank you, Kristen, for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have any other comments or notes that we want in here before Kristen kind of
I got a question as far as what data source are you using to determine the height of the property?
There's on Hugh's website. There is, let me.
I've seen the map. I've seen the map, but if I want to look at my house versus my neighbor's house, it's not that specific.
Well, there's a version of it that is. Like, you can actually write in and see. It's a layered map, so you can find exactly what your property is on that.
I guess my question is, if we're going to have this as a detailed action plan, then we're going to need to say, these are the 400 houses or dwellings in El Portal. These 112 are in our category, nuisance flooding.
Yep.
These next 200 are in the other category, and the remaining 100 are in the others. I don't know if that already exists, if you have that, or what the deal is.
Hugh does have it, right, Hugh?
Okay.
Hugh does have it. So we can make sure that is, we can review that and submit it along with this plan to make sure that information is handed right over to the village. Yes.
Yeah. Is it possible, Kristen, for you to pull up again the information site?
Yep.
Because Courtney, we don't have that in the report, but it's on the information site. Okay, scroll down to the bottom. No, the other one, the unofficial weather forecast, the unofficial weather thing. Yeah, okay, down there at the bottom of the unofficial weather thing. That is the high resolution map. So click on that map, one of those maps.
So you can actually.
Okay, click on it. Click again. Click on the plus. Okay, you can see that map, Courtney, is based on the new incredibly high resolution 5-foot LiDAR the county has put out. So you can find your house on that map and figure out exactly the elevation.
I guess, yeah, I guess I'm not looking to find my house in particular.
Well,
I'm looking for us to have a list and say, these are all in this group, not just by if you live on these streets between these blocks, but we need to figure out, hey, who's communicated with 275 Northwest 86th Street, you know, because they're on the list.
well, we
That,
do
that
have,
was that was what I was going to bring up eventually. Thank you, Courtney.
okay, I have prepared that list.
Beautiful.
I need to check it again. My thing is that the village should have that, you know, the village sort of response team of the chief and the manager and the mayor should have that list, you know, and find a way to communicate with people. The reason why I have that map, however, is that ahead of time, we should also be telling people to go to that map, figure out the elevation of your own house, and you know, determine whether you're in that 5-foot range. That
Well,
Right.
and basically anything that's in blue here is blue or purple is under 5 feet, right?
yeah, I think so. Well,
Because it turns turquoise. I'm talking about the dark blue.
yeah,
Turquoise,
those are just contour lines to help you read the map. The other map, there's a map in the report that shows the 5-foot line.
right.
You know, I can do any kind of map you want.
Hugh, I think what I'm wondering is, instead of a map, is there a table that says this address is at this height? So we could filter it and say, okay, we want to talk to everybody who's less than 3 feet or less than 4 feet. That's this group. And we have a list of the addresses. Forget about how we communicate with them. That's another challenge. But
Yeah.
just,
But the village must have that, right? The village.
I don't know that they do.
Omar, do you know? Does the village have a list of residences by street?
We have residences by street, but residences by street that says the for the flood for how.
Yeah, but we can go with this map. We can define it pretty closely based on this. If we have a plot of the village, this map,
Yeah.
and a list, we can go in and make those.
Yeah, I have the list of addresses. I have a file. I also have generated, you know, the average and median, the highest, lowest, and mean elevation actually for each property in the village.
Perfect.
So I can do the list. I just, I mean, at one point in a group of Kristen and Adam and I, we were kind of worried about shooting around in a public way a list of flood vulnerable properties, just because it could
because
affect
of property value and
Yes.
things
property
like
value and all that stuff. You know, it's one thing for the village to have a list to know who to notify, you know, and maybe you could take that list and create a mailing list or something, you know, from the web addresses the village has, or some way of communicating with those houses under 5 feet. But the most I felt comfortable doing was to put out a map showing the rough location, but also telling people that on your own, you should determine the elevation of your house. I mean, anybody living in Dade County needs to know the elevation of your house. That is the most important piece of information you have about your home, you know, and you can use this detailed map to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think that this is something that the council is going to have to deal with as part of its consideration of this plan. And I can actually make an explicit note here that it's sensitive information, and so the village has to have an explicit policy in dealing with this particular list, right? Like it should be.
Yeah, but remember, if it goes to the village, it's public record.
Thank you, Courtney. That's exactly what I was going to add.
Yeah. Well, then I think it's a question about whether or not we hand over that list or not.
Yeah.
It could also
Part of this record.
could also be something that is not quite as explicit as what Courtney said, which I understand is necessarily less helpful. But if you have we have a map that is not linked to residence streets.
Hand over the maps. We just give them the two maps.
and a resource on the village website that says this color is at risk. You know, we're accomplishing something similar without putting people's names on it and having it discoverable with public records requests.
Right, but I'm looking for how this would be useful for the police and the village manager and everybody else. If I have to figure out who lives on what block and what homes are on that block when a hurricane is approaching, I don't have time for that. I need to be able to have a list and execute on it immediately. It can't be time to digest it.
Understood, Courtney, but I feel like that's part of the, no disrespect to you, Chief, but I think we can depend on our chief and our management to
Notify
be
those
able to,
people.
be able to execute on that. They have already the list of all the residents, right? I mean, I understand, Courtney, I would like to hand over a fully formed plan, but I think in this particular case that we should let those folks do their jobs in terms of developing the communication plan that's best going to work for them.
Right, but if I go down a street, how do I mean, I'm looking at the map. I can see some that are clearly under the 5-foot level, but there are others where maybe one house is and the next house isn't. So if I don't have that and I'm looking at a map, I'm now driving down the street looking at a map, instead of being able to check off a list, these are the 84 houses I gotta, whether it's however they choose to do it, email, knock on doors, call, send, you know, I don't know what they're gonna do. But if you don't have a list they can check off, I'm sorry, but I believe there's gonna be stuff that's missed. Or I'm gonna tell somebody the incorrect information. So I'm just gonna go down 87s and say, hey, a lot of you guys are underwater, so I'm just gonna blast everybody.
Well, wouldn't you, I don't know, I wonder what the chief has to say about it. I would think in that situation, you would say 86th is evacuated. 87th is evacuated.
You can do that. The individual addresses to check off is probably the way to go. And if we had those addresses to police, I don't necessarily think that makes public record.
No.
It's an emergency file that we can go to a time right away. It's much like when we get people that are going out of town. We get a bunch of forms that please check on our house.
Exactly.
It's not public. It's not public record to us. To me, it's not. It's
the only way, if I may, Chief, the only way that would be able to go through you guys is that it would have to be something that Hugh puts together, that Hugh has himself. Then he can give that to just the El Portal, like the manager or the chief. I can't touch it. This task force can't touch it. Kristen's on this task force. She can't touch that. It has to go straight from Hugh, straight to either the chief or the village manager or the mayor or the chief of the village manager or the clerk.
Yeah, I think that what we're going to specify in this plan and what we'll include as part of our handover to the council is going to be the maps with elevation. And we're going to suggest in this that the village needs to develop the communication plan, leverage existing assets within the village to do that. And then, then the chief can reach out to Hugh or whoever else to gather the assets on the backside.
Defining or I'm sorry, to put out information for the entire village, that can be done on the website on a video. That can, anytime you click on it, just explain what's going on without all the specifics of address, just so people have an idea.
Yeah.
And they can click on that. That would work perfectly. And that's inexpensive. That's no cost to that, really.
Yeah, I think we tie it to elevation, and getting to Hugh's point, we get people to be educated about what the elevation of their house is.
It's on their home insurance policy.
Yeah, and then we develop materials related to elevation, right? And not necessarily location in terms of the public facing communication. And then what happens in the storm, in the emergency plan is going to be, again, Claudia, the chief, and the village manager needs to put that in place, right?
Kristen, I'm good for this short-term one for this year. I just think however we get to a longer-term plan, it needs to be address by address, and we'll just have to figure out whether that's something that the village council wants us that level of detail, or if they want us to go up a level and say, hey, we don't want that. I mean, Omar, I'd almost say, I'd almost request that you ask the other council members, because they're the ones who created this task force, how detailed do they want us to get understanding the public records and what that means and all that stuff, so that we don't go down to the level I think we need to go to be completely effective. But on the other hand, you know, there's privacy stuff going on here, and maybe I don't want to know that. I don't want everybody to know that my house is, you know, going to flood 500 times when I go to sell it. You know, so there's a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I can bring that up. I'll bring it up at the next full council meeting. Also, you guys, if you guys are ever around during a council meeting, you guys have that. You know, you guys can also speak on that.
Yeah.
That first good and welfare. I'll bring you in on that. And also, at the council meeting, what I can do, I can just put a RNS task force board update, and a representative from the task force, one of you guys can come up and say whatever's on your mind about what we're talking about.
That sounds like a chair's job.
Whatever you guys want. So it's y'all's task force, so you guys decide.
I would argue that whoever can make the meeting should make the update, just so that we definitely have the update, right? Like, not, I mean, I say that having no idea, Elizabeth, what your schedule is, but this is a case of like, we just need to make sure somebody's there to represent, I think.
I agree.
Can I be put on record? I agree with what Courtney is saying, to specifically get an advance campaign. If it's not this particular hurricane season, but really make it a point to create this communication address by address, and being honest and telling the people that are occupying that. And that might even assist with some of the seniors, and, you know, really being proactive in the safety part of evacuating.
Well, and to be honest, in a super serious flood situation, a lot of people are going to get flooded. Very, very, very many people are going to get flooded all over Miami. So that's part of what we're going to be dealing with everywhere. So it's not unique to El Portal. Larchmont will be underwater. Miami Beach will be underwater. Lots of very expensive properties will be underwater along with everybody else. So I do, you know, I agree that in a situation where we're talking about something beyond nuisance flooding, that kind of is less important. But I do, even as I say this as someone who owns a house that's subject to nuisance flooding, like if you want to sell your house, that is, you know, something that you would, you know,
not want to hear.
There's a
No,
narrow
disclose.
there's a narrow walk. Well, I mean, someone asked, you have to say, right? But just like we do want to not to just be careful about it. So.
I mean,
In some ways, the nuisance flooding is a bigger issue in terms of home values than a major flood.
Yeah, for me, what I was thinking about is that it's more of a sense of community, and that the actual government and village and police care about the resident, and that they're reaching out and making it, you know, like that small town feel, hey, we care about you and we're here for you.
Yeah, and the organizing for life and limb is about medium to large size flooding. It's not about nuisance flooding, actually. Those of us who have to deal with nuisance flooding know how to handle it. It would be great to have some sandbags. But
maybe that's how we do. Maybe that's how we do it, Kristen. That's an interesting point. That I don't want to say we ignore the nuisance flooding, but for a lot of the communication, we include, hey, your house is under 5 feet, or whatever the number is that we eventually decide on. Your house is under 5 feet, whether it's at 2 and you're nuisance flooding, or it's at 4.5 and there's a storm coming in, you're grouped in together. That way you don't have that stigma. That might be a really good compromise. I don't know. Something to consider.
Yep, I agree.
I have a suggestion if I could. So as the chief was saying, in terms of, you know, people going out of town, they fill out a form. And so they're essentially opting in to having public law enforcement, public safety interact with their property simply by driving by and keeping an eye on it, right? But they're opting into interaction with the village. So is it possible that, I would say, ahead of each hurricane season and at the end of each hurricane season, you do like opt-in drives to get people to opt in to be notified, you know, as an individual property in emergency management. This is going to take some time to get, you know, fill it out. But, you know, even for example, the Public Affairs Committee is working on like a welcome package for new residents, for example. So that could be part of the welcome package. Hey, you can opt into individual home notification for like emergency, for, flooding issues. So that's my thought, is maybe it's possible that you create a system where people can opt in. And then, as the chief is saying, that is essentially a list that is held and controlled by the police department. And I mean, I'm not the person to say if that will work or not, but that's my suggestion in terms of a workaround to individual notification of properties.
That will work until we get into a danger zone, in which case we can't. We have to have a plan for, getting our recalcitrant non-communicative residents to also be safe, right?
I think the question on how detailed we get needs to have legal advice as far as how we can structure it to keep it out of public domain, although the information is out there. How we can do that, whether reasonably and legally, we can say, hey, this is a public safety thing, this is a privacy thing, it only goes to the police. I don't know how we could potentially structure it, or that's just not allowed in the state of Florida. Again, I don't know, that's.
I'll email our attorney and start that conversation and see where we begin through his input.
One thing here I'm going to do, unless you guys say no, is that I'm going to work on putting on this information page I've been running a form where you type in your address and it will give you the elevation. So people can do that individually so they don't have to look at the map. I think that, I've set up the site pretty securely. There'll be no way to access the list from the site that it comes from, but you will be able to, it's like the property appraiser page. You can look up your own property, but you can't generate a huge list of everybody.
Right.
So
that sounds good to me. That would be helpful for individuals. I'm not sure that would address the public safety communication out, but I think that's a useful tool to have too.
Well, and then the chief will have the list for the communication part.
Yep.
Let me just say for the record that I think the entire committee should have headphones that have cat ears on them. I'm feeling jealous about those pink earphones right now.
And they light up. See, these are the only ones that work in the house. I can't find my wireless one.
Guys, I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking this was going to be a 2-hour meeting, so I actually have a call with press in a couple minutes. So, do we have anything else on the agenda? I don't know what I know what my next steps are, but I don't know what the process is going to be for now.
Yeah, I think we're good to go with that. And we'll just wait for your edits, Kristen. And in terms of the agenda specific to the task force, we're done with that. But Vice Mayor, how do we proceed through the rest of the agenda items? Do you take care of that, or is that something that you'd like me to take care of?
This time I'll take care of it, just for sake of time, so we can roll right through it. In the future, you guys can go ahead. Courtney, you want to say something?
Sorry. Before we go to the other agenda items, can I just review the action items that I believe we have and correct me or add? We've got both for Elizabeth and Maribel separately to identify and present the roles and responsibilities for their chair and vice chair role for the next meeting for board approval. And then Kristen has refined the storm safety action plan for review and approval at the next meeting. Did I miss anything? Those were the 3 that I had.
I think that covers it, Courtney.
Okay.
And we also want to go ahead and schedule our next meeting while we're all here as well.
So last schedule for Wednesday, August 26th, 3:30 to 5:30. I don't know if that still holds for people.
Yes. That is on my calendar. I missed it.
Okay, no worries. We don't have an agenda yet, so I don't know if we want to. The one item, at least, I would suggest on the agenda is from the action items we have to review and approve the roles and responsibilities for the two roles, and to review the storm safety action plan.
Yeah, you guys also need to figure out how you guys are going to do. I mean, I would suggest, I think you guys said it before, as far as voting. Kristen, if we're done with Kristen, if your call's coming up, you can go ahead and leave. They will still have quorum with the 3 members that are here.
Okay.
They need at least 3 of the 5, so majority is quorum. So you can go ahead and sign off if you're in a hurry to get off. Go ahead. You can do that.
Let me just, I'm stopping sharing so I can check my email on that call, but I will, I may bounce off.
Okay.
So I would suggest that you guys, for voting purposes, because it seems like your first vote is going to be on this item when it's when it's done in this final draft form. You guys are going to vote this through to full council, to go to the full council. So you guys need to figure out how you guys want to vote for things. I'm assuming that you guys might want to vote for it. How we do, until you guys figure it out, how we do it the village council level, which is majority. We vote majority. Majority, it passes through 3 out of 5.
As long as there's a quorum, I imagine.
As long as there's a quorum with at least 3. So you need at least 3 for a quorum. If that was the case, it'd be 2 out of 3.
Yeah, I like the idea of making sure you have 3 affirmative votes, just opinion. But, again, we're just recommending, so
Yeah.
Less concern.
Yeah. But yeah, I would just suggest that. So you have that, and then you have the 2 roles that you guys want to figure out about the chair, vice chair, and then you have this this document that you guys want to put together, present to. The attorney's texting me right now. He's like, "Hey, is the task force meeting still going on?" but yeah, you guys want to present. You guys want to get that together. Get it to me. If you guys have any agenda items, no matter what it is, anything that comes up in your mind, get it to me so I can get it ready for the agenda. Whenever I get it ready, you guys, I'll put the agenda out, and at that time, you guys will have all that information to start to prepare for the next meeting. So,
Omar, can we kill agenda items I, J, K, L? I mean, resolutions and ordinances, we can't do resolutions and ordinances. Mayor, manager, committee, and attorney reports, they don't apply to us. Can we just clean those up?
I can take them off. I left them on there because actually what's interesting is that the village manager was going to come on and give a report today, but she couldn't. She had another meeting. So I just put that there just in case you guys, what if Claudia wants to come on one day? What if, so I just left that there. For example, there's like the things with the unfinished business and general orders and new business. We have that on every council meeting. We've never used it. You know what I'm saying? In my 10 plus years being on the council. So, so I just left those there, but I can take them off, but I left those there just in case.
Yeah, I just like to make it as simple as possible for us rather than have 25 things. Only it's the 5 that we care about, but that's me being selfish.
he's like all the extra stuff hurts my eyes. It's all good. But if that's it, you guys, Chair Carpenter, it's on you. What do you want me to do? You might want to see if anybody else has anything left, like any last thoughts or remarks they want to say from everybody here on the task force. Councilperson Erbaum, you have the chief still here. If anybody has anything that they want to say, you might want to go through that, and then I can take it from there if that's your wish, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I'm good.
I have a question.
Sure.
The council meeting is the same day, August 26th. So is someone going to be asked to report on what we have when we re-meet? It's the 26th. So are we reporting on that?
I thought they were on a Tuesday and we're on Wednesday.
So, first of all, in August, you guys, there's no council meeting. Remember, government is always off in August. That's just usually how it usually goes in August. That's national. That's national.
But it would normally be the 25th would be the council meeting, and we would be on the 26th, right?
Yeah, it's always the 4th Tuesday. Council meetings are always the 4th Tuesday.
Yeah.
Just as a suggestion for us going forward, if we're going to be monthly or whatever, if we want to be the equivalent of us on the 19th, the Wednesday before.
Yeah.
So if we had anything to feed into that, we could. I think that's a good point by Maribel.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether or not we want to, I guess it doesn't really matter because we're going to miss that meeting, but I would argue that we always meet the Wednesday before council meeting, potentially.
I think that makes
and if we're on an alternating schedule, that would mean we would do today and the 19th, so that we would work on a document, we would review a document, we would present to the council, right?
I think that makes sense, Kristen. Sorry, Madam Chairperson, I believe that Honorable Ms. McLean has a very good point.
Great, I fully support that. So we'll plan on, was the agreement the Wednesday before Village Council meeting is a standing calendar for us?
Yeah, and we may, depending on our calendar, depending on what we're trying to get done, we might want to have 2 meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Like two
Every
meetings.
other week.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we, in the immediate future, we're now scheduled for 3:30 on August 26th as our next meeting, where we will discuss the agenda items just discussed.
Yeah, so maybe we can add on the agenda, just scheduling out from that day, scheduling out the fall meetings so that we have them.
I'll put it in the notes as far as what the future agenda is for the next meeting plans. One of them, so the 3 action items, reviewing those, and the future scheduling of meetings.
Perfect. And the scheduling may be something that depends on what we're working on at the moment too, because unless everybody is, willing to put twice a month appointments on their calendar. But it seems like we may need to be a little bit more reactionary in terms of the frequency.
Okay.
Does that seem right to everyone? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to tackle, once we get this plan to the council, then I think the question becomes, what are then our longer term goals, right?
Right. Yep. Okay, well, great. If nobody else has any additional comments, Vice Mayor, are we all set to adjourn?
Yeah, so
I'm sorry.
I was going to make a motion to adjourn if we need it, but we may have to go through the other stuff before we go through the adjournment. Who knows?
Did the chief, Councilperson Urban, anybody else have anything they wanted to say before I go through this? Any last remarks? Everybody's good?
We're good.
All right. Thank you by way of Chair Carpenter. Congratulations again. Congratulations to you, Vice Chair Fruitstone. By way of you guys, I'm going to go ahead and go through this. We have no resolutions or ordinances, no committee mayor or manager reports, no unfinished business or general orders. But as far as new business, let me say this. When you guys get a chance, send me, the task force members, send me a brief bio and send me a picture of yourself. You guys, I'm gonna try to put that on the website under our task force tab.
Do people really need dartboards?
What did you say?
Pictures of us that you can just put on a dartboard, really?
Dartboard. Hey, I've been going through this for more than a decade, man. Join the party.
You can just put up a picture of Russell, Courtney.
There you go.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Or give me a picture of Loci. There you go. It's all good. Okay, you guys. So no new business. Good and welfare, you guys. Have to do good and welfare. Does anybody from the audience have anything they want to come on and say? I see no attendees, but is anybody watching that wants to jump on real quick? Chastise us, praise us, whatever you want to say. This is your chance of saying it now. The second good and welfare action, you guys, is for anybody to come on and say anything at all about anything at all that they want to talk about that's going on in the village. This is your chance to come on and speak your mind. I am seeing none. Therefore, we have no good and welfare. We're going down. And Madam Chair, you might want to ask at this point in time for a motion to adjourn, a second for that motion to adjourn, and then you can go ahead and adjourn the meeting at whatever time and hit your gavel, Madam Chair.
Ah, great. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move we adjourn the meeting.
Courtney has a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kristen. And I believe the meeting is now officially adjourned at 5:38 p.m.
Here's your gavel. Here's your gavel, Madam Chair. There you go.
I got to get one.
Get one for next week.
Yeah.
All right.
We appreciate
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day,
you
you guys.
all.
All right.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Bye, guys.
Congratulations again, you guys. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Great job, Elizabeth. Take care.